Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Pivot and Thrive. I'm Karin McCarthy, and I'm so excited that you're joining today for this workshop with Martha Nowlan about creating steady income and retirement planning with investment properties. Vermont Collaborative Circle is dedicated to creating learning, showcase, and collaboration opportunities to support small business growth and success in Vermont. And I'm just so glad that you're here with a curiosity and commitment to learning and connecting with other entrepreneurs in Vermont to support small business success. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're coming together on Abenaki land and recognize the Abenaki people as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land that we love, the Dawn Land, Vermont. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Martha Nowlan. Martha is a realtor and CEO of Shift Real Estate and at Keller Williams, Vermont, KW Vermont. She is dedicated to bringing diversity, equity, and inclusion, corporate social responsibility, and sustainability values into the real estate world. Thank you so much, Martha. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to share and learning with you. I think this is such a great topic. So without further ado, I will make you the host so you can share.
Okay, here we go. You are the host now. Let's see.
The power
Share screen.
Great.
Bear with me through any technological stuff. Do you see my PowerPoint?
We do. We're with you.
Lovely. And now I want to I put it on my screen above me, but I actually want to be looking at it on my laptop so that I'm, looking at all of you. Because now are you seeing my PowerPoint?
No, we just switched to your OneDrive. So
wait, let me redo that.
Yeah, no problem. I should start by saying there's nothing that freaks me out more than doing technology live. So I absolutely share your pain and challenge of figuring it out on the fly. We're all about pivot and thrive here. So we're happy to support you. And if you'd like, I can also drive the slides. Okay, I think you're good.
Here.
Perfect.
And then I admit. This is my second time doing a presentation on Zoom, despite being a millennial and also, COVID. So thanks for bearing with me. I think we're good from here. So yeah, I'm Martha Nowlan. I am a real estate agent based in, I basically cover like mostly Chittenden, Washington County in Vermont, but have a network of agents worldwide. Oh, more people to admit. That's good. And I will give the disclosures that I am not like, the foremost real estate investment expert in the world or in Vermont. But I know hopefully enough to be dangerous and am aspiring to do more real estate investing myself, and also see I also see real estate as something that is both problematic in a lot of ways, systemically within capitalism, etc. Lots of history with real estate regulation, with the National Association of Realtors itself, in terms of racist policies and, housing is not accessible to everyone. Like there are a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion issues within real estate. And I also see there being opportunity within the industry to try to make real estate more accessible. And I'll also say that I know that there's sometimes, not sometimes, but pretty much all the time can be some negative views towards landlords, towards anyone in real estate. And while that's true of plenty of people, it doesn't necessarily have to be a rule. And I don't know about all of you, but I see myself as someone who wants to break the norm and change the way people look at things. So that is one thing I am trying to do with my business, which includes helping like people who didn't think that they could invest in real estate figure out that they actually can. So a little bit more about my business and me. Oops, going too fast. So I've been a licensed real estate agent for a little over 3 years. I bought my own first property. I was a renter for the first 2.5 years of being a real estate agent. I bought a house in June. It is a 3-unit building, and I have basically accomplished having a beautiful place to live. My apartment is nice. I'm on like nearly 6 acres. I have a garden. I've got apple trees and like all, sunset views and stuff. And I also have my renters paying my mortgage for me. In terms of my business, I am growing with kind of goals of, you can see my mission here, a different kind of real estate company on a mission to transform the real estate industry by prioritizing equity and sustainability over profit. So I have a lot of goals in my business around basically doing enough business so that the rest of the industry pays attention, and then doing things differently. I come from a background in the solar industry, so I am aiming to become kind of the go-to for folks with solar panels on their house. Would like to kind of create more programs around doing this kind of education to get more people to be able to both be obviously get into homeownership, but also help people get into real estate investing. I think it's great if we can have more kind of like, I don't know, average people investing in real estate, and not just, the landlords who own like, the like 3 people who own like all of Burlington. And I've got some, the first agents on my team joining. So the really short version is I run a company within KW Vermont. And I will be kind of have other agents coming to kind of work under my mentorship and under my business. And so that growth is going to be part of my goals. And long term, I'm hoping to grow that and grow some other businesses off of it, and also do more real estate investing myself. Why does any of this have to do with business owners? A lot of business owners are going to struggle with money, because we all do. Business owners are, I think, sometimes either paying more attention to it or paying less attention to it because they're so involved in building their business. And depending on your business, you might have either kind of inconsistent cash flow, right? So some months are going to be better than others. You might have certain times of the year when you are actually a lot less busy, and your business just slows down, and you have all this kind of like free time on your hands. And you also might have an office space or some kind of other commercial space that you're renting right now that you could be, owning yourself and renting out to other people. So the real estate investing isn't going to be right for everyone, right? So all of these like bigger questions you have to ask yourself. What do you want in life? Like, what do you want your life to look like? Again, like, is your business cash flowing steadily? Why are you even here thinking about investing in real estate? How much time can you actually invest? And again, can that be like something that you put a little bit of time into monthly, or is it something where you have like 2 or 3 months that you can intensely put time into? Will you make more money on your business, right? So like, that's a question that I ask myself. Is my, what is my time worth per hour? And I don't know the answer to this. I should, right? We all should, but I don't know. What is my time worth per hour as a real estate agent, business owner, like as a business owner, right? My real estate, everything I do in real estate is me as a business owner. Whereas what is my time worth if I, do a house flip or something, right? I don't know. And if your time is worth more in your business, then don't look into real estate, or find ways to leverage people to help you look into real estate. Do you have a financial plan? Are you contributing to a retirement plan? I know with a lot of small business owners, the answer might be no. And even if it is, it's good to diversify. and thinking about what would you do? What would you be able to do with your business if you had more cash flow, if you had reliable cash flow, if you knew that you had, rent coming in every month that was going to pay your living expenses? Could you take more risks with your business? Would you be able to kind of take care of more of your personal living needs so that you can do more with your business, invest more in your business? So obviously there are other ways to invest. You can have a savings account. That's going to get you like nothing right now, of course. You could have stocks that you trade yourself. Robinhood is obviously getting a ton of attention right now, but there's also E-Trade. Like there are other ways where you can trade stocks on your own. Bitcoin, right? And all of the other cryptocurrency. You might have an IRA or 401k. You might have, so REITs are real estate investment trusts. That's just a way to, it's kind of like you're investing in stocks or in, I'm totally blanking on the term, but it's like you're putting your money on the market, but in like bigger real estate projects. There's things like Milk Money, which is like a local Vermont program where you can invest in local businesses. There are tons of ways you can invest in your money. There's also real estate. So some of the goals you can accomplish with real estate might be cash flow. You might do buy and hold, so kind of building equity, which is more of a like long-term, you're gonna get that payout eventually. So that's more of a like long-term retirement kind of goal. You might want cash like right now, which might be basically flipping houses. Usually, we'll talk about a few options for that. You might house hack. We're going to talk more about that. And there's, of course, tax benefits, which I will tell you right now are not something I'm going to focus on because I am not an expert in that. They exist. I can't elaborate too much on them. So we're going to talk about all of these things. Some of them are going to work better for your own goals than others in terms of like, going back. Going back here basically and thinking about your goals, like what it is you might be trying to accomplish. And of course, how much money you might have up front. So single family rentals, owning a single family home or a condo and renting it out. This can get you cash flow. I actually meant to do a slide. Forgive me, I prepared these slides this morning. I meant to do a slide on BRRRR, which you see there, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So the idea there is that you buy a house, you rehab it, so you're adding value to it. You might be getting a fixer-upper or something. You get some renters in there. You refinance it. The idea here is that, if you buy a house at $100,000 and you put $20,000 into it, and then it's worth $150,000. I don't know if these numbers are great. And then you refinance it and you actually get some cash back because you actually have added enough value that you have that much equity in it. Then you have more cash on hand. Like you actually created cash for yourself and you can go invest in more properties. You can buy and hold, which is more like you're just buying it. Your goals might not be the cash flow immediately, but you're going for equity, right? We've seen in the Burlington area, houses are appreciating like, 3 to 4% every year usually. And year over year, last time I looked, I think prices were up like 12% compared to a year ago, which is absurd. But if you had bought a house a year ago, it might be worth 12% more already. So that's kind of what that, what the goal of the buy and hold would be, is again, like kind of that long-term equity, or you could flip it. So with doing, just in terms of thinking about renting with a home, you are only going to have one tenant to manage, which is maybe going to be better than something like a multifamily. It can be more risky in terms of if you don't have a tenant that's your entire mortgage that's not being paid, right? As opposed to something like a multifamily with other units. You can have more equity gains and easier resale value. Single family homes are a little, like, can be a little bit more predictable in terms of their value going up over time, in terms of how quickly they sell. You know, if you're paying any attention to the real estate market this year, things are selling in, like 24 hours sometimes. But that also means there's more competition. So you're competing against everyone who wants to buy a house. And then with condos, this is something that I find people might be thinking about a little less often with rentals, but it's lower maintenance because there's someone, you're paying the condo fees so that a management company can take care of mowing the lawn, they take care of the roof, they take care of the siding. I mean, this is depending on the condo association, but usually. And the things to be aware of are there might be restrictions on rentals. So like always something to make sure you check. A lot of them have kind of a cap on how many units can be rented. And you can get into it cheaper sometimes. You can get into a decent condo for around 200,000 in the Burlington area. I don't know where everyone's from, so apologies if I'm, not speaking to your specific market. I don't know Southern Vermont that well, and more people in Burlington than anywhere else. So this is something that can be like an easier way to get into real estate investing, and also might have a little bit kind of higher cost of entry, because typically if you're buying something like this for like just to rent out, it's going to be a 20-25% down payment. Another strategy is that you can buy it for yourself and then move every year and kind of build up your real estate portfolio that way. Multifamilies. So this is 2 to 4 units. You are generally more likely to cash flow from this. So that means that every month, taking into account your rent payments, your taxes, your insurance, your property management if you have it, the electric bill, the water bill, like all of that. And then taking into account the rent payments that you're getting from your tenants, that you actually are going to make money off of it. So that's a criteria that isn't going to fit and isn't what every investor is looking at. But again, if you're thinking of how can I invest in real estate so that I have more reliable cash flow, which is a way to stabilize your business, multifamily can be a great way to do that. The BRRRR again, so you can kind of buy a multifamily, fix it up, rent out the units, refinance, and see that built equity. And then there's house hacking. So house hacking is essentially the idea that hold on, I'm going forward a little bit. So house hacking is a strategy that involves renting out portions of your primary residence to generate income that is used to offset the cost of your mortgage and other expenses associated with owning a home. So I'll go back to that. Back to multifamilies, risk and reward. Obviously you have more tenants, right? If you have a 4-unit building, you've got 4 different tenants and, however many people are living there, but at least 4 different leases that you're managing. So that does mean that you have more people paying rent, right? If you have 4 units and you have one person who's not paying rent, you're not necessarily in as much kind of financial risk as if you had, only one person paying rent and you had a vacancy. It's more utilities to manage. That kind of depends on the building. So that's actually just, if you're going to look into buying a multifamily, it's something to really pay attention to, that if this is going a little in the weeds, but the upsides and downsides of things like the tenants paying for their own utilities or you paying for the utilities. I'm just going to keep going on 4 units, although you can have 2 units just as easily. Like, it's not like you have to have 4 units, but if you have 4 units and the tenants all have their own utilities, you probably have 4 water heaters, you have 4 furnaces or boilers, and you have 4 electric panels. So it's great that you're not paying those expenses, and you got a lot more things that could break, will break, need maintenance. If you if you're paying those bills and you just have one set of each of those, less maintenance, but obviously, we all have rented before probably, and all know people who rent and have heard stories about, people having the heat up at 80 degrees and the windows open, or, letting the hot water run. The man I bought my house from said that so short little tangent story. He used to rent to traveling nurses, and there was a traveling nurse who he used to rent to who must have reached out to him, gotten my number from him. And I was going to rent out the space to her again, short term, because I have one of my spaces that I do that with. I asked him for a reference. And he told me that one time he went over, noticed the hot water had been running for a long time, went to check on it. She wasn't in there, and the shower was running on hot. And he asked her why, and she said it's because the air was dry. So point is, if you're paying for the utilities, tenants will do crazy stuff like that sometimes. And you just have to balance the risk of that. I cannot believe that that's a thing, but I did not rent to her because I am not patient enough to deal with anything like that. Multifamilies are also going to be usually more expensive, than buying a single family home. But that depends, because if you want to buy a multifamily like in Berry City, I live in Berrytown. Berry City, you can get in real cheap, and it is, there's plenty of stigma. Don't believe it. I am definitely going to be buying more multifamilies in Berry City. Little insider tip. I'm getting a notification. Someone's saying something in the chat. Oh goodness. Okay, just making sure I didn't miss anything. Any questions? Okay. So another strategy. Just going back to the goals here again. Really, to me, the key thing for multifamily is going to be house hacking. So we'll get into that more later. And cash flow. So more likely to basically be making money off of it every month. Adding units. So adding more living units to a building. So you might buy a single family home, especially the easiest thing for me to think about with doing this is a raised ranch. So you take a raised ranch and you turn the top and bottom floors into apartments. So you went from having a 1,500 square foot single family home to having a 600 square foot apartment, with 1 or 2 bedrooms, and whatever's left, 1,100 square foot, 900 square foot apartment with 2 bedrooms, and you might be able to get more rent. So that's always an equation, but it can be a strategy to add value. And I also see it as a way of being able to create more housing inventory, right? So we all know that Vermont has kind of lower housing inventory. More people are moving into cities, and we don't have enough housing for them. So if you turn something that could fit, 1 family into something that could fit 2 families, I see that as also a way of just kind of adding to Vermont's housing inventory. You also might be able to house hack. So you could buy a house and live in, to turn a single family home into something where you can live in one unit. This also might be, by the way, like adding an in-law apartment. So that's the place to be careful there is that most towns have rules that you can't rent out an in-law apartment unless you live there. So if it's a long-term strategy of you moving out and then renting both of those, there's going to be a little bit more risk there. You're only going to get in trouble if someone reports you, but I could never advise doing that if you know that you're going to be moving out and then renting the main house in the in-law apartment. You also can be adding value. That's always going to depend on the market, whether going from a single family home to something like a duplex is going to be adding value, but it's certainly a possibility. So you can add a lot of value and get more cash flow out of it. And also, it's limited to places where that works for the zoning regulations. So there's a little more kind of upfront research to do with that. It's not going to work everywhere to be able to do a duplex where it is a single family home, etc. Oops. House hacking. So already defined this. Examples: having a multifamily and living in one unit. You could have a single family home or a multifamily and live in it and rent bedrooms out to roommates. Or you can create an in-law apartment. The goal of this is mostly to, have your tenants be paying your expenses more kind of directly, right? So that's what I'm doing right now. I live in a 3-unit building. My tenants are paying my expenses. And the key thing to know about this is that it is basically the most accessible, I would say, because it means that you can buy a house with a low down payment because you're going to be living there. So I think I have a slide about financing, but you can use an FHA loan, which is Federal Housing Authority, which is a 3.5% down payment and has a higher debt to income ratio, which can be helpful for self-employed people because when you're looking to get a mortgage, they're going to be looking at basically the profit of your business, which, as you probably know from being a small business owner, is sometimes going to look like a lot less than how much money you actually made because of writing stuff off. So the FHA loan can be helpful for buying an owner-occupied home because you're not going to need as much money, and because you're going to have a little bit more leniency in terms of the lender looking at what they think you can afford based on your income. So you can buy a multifamily property for, $400,000, and you can bring, what is that, like $13,000 as a down payment. So pretty awesome. And then you can rent out the other units. You have to live there for a year. That's like the requirement through it. So I bought this house on June 22nd of 2020. I plan on buying another house like June 23rd, 2021, because I don't have to live here anymore, and I'm going to keep this and I'm going to rent it and I'm going to keep doing that. So that's like the kind of main aspect of house hacking. It's something you can do. Now, of course, those kinds of loans are usually if you don't already own a home. So this is something that, there are other ways of doing that too, but in terms of the lower down payment, it's more accessible that way. I will say for myself that living with roommates is not something I'm willing to do. So that is not a strategy I am personally interested in, but it's something to keep in mind. It all depends. I've been the person renting in a situation like this. I've lived with roommates, but I would rather, make less money off the property and not have anyone else in my space. That one's up to you. Let's see. I've got a couple of questions. Is there a percentage of cash flow that shows you will make a profit when investing? So sort of. There are a bunch of different calculations. I wasn't going to get too far into all of those on this presentation, mostly because I understand some of them better than others. But what I was going to do once I get through a few more things is actually run you all through an analysis of a property. I was going to see if anyone wanted to see anything in particular and just live time put in an analysis of a property. So there are a few different ways. I can actually send a link to some articles, because I meant to say at the beginning, but I'm not actually giving you any information you can find online somewhere. I'm not some genius, it's all over. And sometimes, yeah, it's nice to hear it from someone live who you can ask questions to, who's not just some person who wrote an article. But in terms of looking at cash flow and crunching those numbers, there are a bajillion different formulas, and it all depends on your goals. So some people are going to be looking at whether they can make more money off the property than if they put it in the stock market. Some people are going to be looking at how much cash they're going to get back from their cash. There are all kinds of different formulas. So I guess I can point you to some resources, and ultimately, it's up to you. And yeah, I'll get into that a little bit more. And how can you buy another home and keep your home? So a few things on that. One, that's something that you would essentially go to a mortgage lender for, in terms of figuring out what can I qualify for based on owning my current home. There are a few different things you can do. One, if you have equity, you might be able to actually get a home equity loan or cash out refinance or something to access some of the equity in your current home and use that to buy a new one, use that as help for a down payment on a new one. And it depends on your loan. That's the thing, is it all depends on the type of loan you have for your current home. They all have different rules, but usually there's no reason that you can't buy a new primary home and keep your other one. Yeah, there's no blanket answer for it, unfortunately. But the other options, and something I'm realizing I didn't mention too much here because I didn't know if it was something that people, most business owners would be able to actually do, but you can actually buy a second home. So something that you actually consider your second home, a vacation spot or something like that. So I off the top of my head, the rule is that it has to be at least 100 miles away. But then the exception to that, as I understand it, is essentially that it also can be clear that it's a vacation home. So if I don't live on the lake right now and I buy a second home, I don't know why I'm doing this. If I buy a second home that's on the lake, or up right next to a ski resort or something, that could be a second home for me. And maybe I go there a few weeks a year, and it would be okay for me to do short-term rentals for the rest of the year. Point is, I could do as little as a 10% down payment on something like that. So you can do a 10% down payment on a second home, but to qualify for a second home, there are those certain criteria. An underwriter individually is going to determine whether it actually fits that. But my understanding from what I've kind of learned about it and looked into it is, if it's clearly seems like a vacation spot, it's a special location compared to where you live now, it could qualify. So this is all you got to talk to a lender kind of stuff. But here, I'll skip ahead to talking about where to go. Short-term rentals. So I wasn't going to get too much into this, mostly because I'm making an assumption that business owners are not going to want to put the time into short-term rentals. I think a lot of times it sounds like really fun to Airbnb something. And actually, it's like a lot of work. I'm learning this myself. I've had these aspirations of Airbnb-ing one of my units, and it's just a lot of work. You furnish it, you decorate it, and then, I mean, really, I would suggest paying someone to clean it, but there's still all this management that you have to do. And there are kind of like, there are some companies out there and some people that you can hire to manage it for you. And like overall, it's probably, if you're just getting into real estate investing, a little bit more to take on and a little bit less predictable than just, having longer term tenants. Point is, that is an idea for being able to get into another property that is a vacation home for you, where you can, I am thinking about doing this myself, despite, what I just said about Airbnbs and how much time it is to manage them. Buy yourself a lake house, do a 10% down payment, and you get to go there on vacation, and then you rent it out for most of the time. Great. Going back for a second, commercial buildings are a multifamily of 5 or more units, or a property that has workspace. So I feel like most of that is obvious, but people don't always realize that a multifamily 5 and above is also commercial. The financing is a little more complicated sometimes. It also can be easier to get sometimes because they're more flexible. So sometimes a bank is just like making a decision based on knowing you, or like looking at some numbers. They're not, if they're keeping it in-house, they don't have to follow all of the federal regulations necessarily. So it can be easier. It just depends. It's going to be higher interest rates. It might be more expensive. It just depends. But like usually commercial is a little bit more expensive. And that said, like business tenants can be a little easier to manage. I can't say that I don't have that much experience with commercial. From what I've seen, you sometimes are going to make less money off of renting to business tenants, but they're also lower maintenance and they're not using that many utilities because they're only there during the day. I do see questions, so let me just see if that's something that, okay, yeah, I'll get into that stuff. Flipping. This is another thing that may or may not work for business owners. I think that the place where I see this potentially fitting in would be, where I mentioned like some of you might have more seasonality to your work. You might have a few months during the year where your clients are just like not really there. So I'm sure you find time to either take vacation, which is nice, or work on side projects or work on your business. This is something else you might be able to fit into that. So flipping is, you buy, it doesn't have to be that you buy like a moldy, disgusting house or a foreclosure. It can be any kind of house that where the numbers work. It could be something that's like fine, but you could make it more luxury. It's all going to depend on the market. Renee, who's on this, has lots of experience with doing flips. But basically you're going to be fixing something up to make a profit. You can either flip it and sell it. So I feel like that's like what most people know. You buy the house for $100,000. Using the example again, you put 20,000 into it, you sell it for 150. You just made money quick. Lots of tax implications. There's all kinds of other, costs and stuff in that, but that's a way to turn money into more money in like, less than 6 months usually, right? You also could do the BRRRR that we talked about before: buy, rent, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. That's why it's BRRRR and not just saying that whole tongue twister every time. And you also can do value add. So you might be taking something that is you might be turning a single family home into a duplex to sell it. You might be taking something that is just like kind of bleh to being like really gorgeous. Rules: buy cheap, fix fast, and know your strategy and your numbers. So know your market. Like sometimes something looks like it's going to be really great. You have all these great ideas, and you're going to make this beautiful house. You're going to sell it for 400,000, and you buy it. And what you didn't realize is that there isn't a single sale over 300,000 in the neighborhood. Don't do that. So this is all where like, you got to make sure that you have the right people to talk to and help you like figure out a strategy. And you want to make sure you have contractors lined up. You want to know if you're going to GC it yourself. Like if you're going to be your own general contractor and like hire the electrician and hire the carpenter and hire the plumber, or if you're going to hire someone to manage all of that for you. You want to make sure that you know what kind of loan you're going to use. You want to either, I mean, if you have access to all your own data and you like know the market, great. You probably want to have a real estate agent who's partnering with you on it, in terms of like making sure that you're using that leverage, someone who knows the market, to help you make sure that you're, buying it at a good price, that you know what your strategy is, how much money you're going to spend on it. And yeah, it's an opportunity to make a lot of money. By a lot of money, I mean, I don't know, people can make like $50,000 on one flip. And then it's taxed, there are tax implications. It takes more time. How much time is up to you, obviously, right? If you're going to hire a general contractor and you like trust their decisions on the renovations, you might be able to kind of step back. But if you are going to manage the project yourself and you are very picky about what kind of backsplash there is and like all kinds of things, then yeah, it's going to take a lot of time. But it might be really fun too. It all depends. It's also risky because you could find some issue with the house that you did not know about and end up making no money or losing money. The market could tank one day. I mean, like we all make these, this is like a whole nother, presentation, but we all make these assumptions that, like inherently we make these assumptions as a society and as an economy that the housing market will just continue to appreciate and appreciate and appreciate and appreciate and appreciate. And while I don't think they were heading towards a like 2008, 2009 bubble, like something's got to give at some point. So anyways, there's always going to be some risk in buying something in today's market and making assumptions on its value for, the market 4 months from now. We did short terms. I'll do wholesale. I'm just going to say wholesaling really quickly. I want you to know what it is, but I don't necessarily think this is what everyone's going to get into. The basic idea is you find a house and get it under contract at a deal, and you find someone else to take over the contract. So, Joe Schmo over here, who's my neighbor, is getting rid of his house. I know that it's worth 150. He just like wants it gone. He wants someone else to deal with it. I tell him that I'll pay him, 120 for it. I get it under contract, and then I go market it and find someone else to take over the contract at 140, and I pocket the extra 20,000. So that's the very simplified version of it. That's all I'll go into about that one. Because again, in terms of like things that small business owners would want to get into, that one's a little more complicated and is something that usually is like an entire business for people. Like there are people who their entire business is wholesaling. So something to like, assuming that something that will seem like an obstacle for people is, how the heck do I manage all of these tenants? There are property management companies. They're amazing. They do cost money, but that's something that you would take into account while you're running the numbers. So property management company can find tenants for you. That can be all they do. Like they'll just do that. Usually in my experience, the fee for that is equal to about a month of rent. So if you're finding tenants for a $1,500 a month rent, that's the fee you'll pay to get, a property management company to do the leases. They'll find the tenants, so they'll do the advertising, they'll screen them, usually, credit check, background check references, they'll do the lease. And then you can also have them manage the property, which means they're taking the tenant calls at midnight when there's water leaking. They're collecting not tent, I meant rent. They're taking care of the maintenance. They've got their plumber that they call. You're going to pay for that. So like you'll pay the bill, but you're not worrying about coordinating all that kind of stuff. They're going to make sure the lawn gets mowed, like all those things. Again, you're ultimately paying for that, but they're coordinating it. They have their people. You like don't even have to think about it. They might keep your books, so they might be even keeping track of your expenses and stuff for you. And then all you have to do is hand it to your accountant at the end of the year. Usually, in my experience of the market, it's like 8 to 10, 11% of the monthly rent as a fee. So if you want to use that leverage, great. You can buy real estate and like basically not have to do that much with it if you're renting it. You just have to pay someone to do that. You just have to factor it into your numbers. How do you find property? MLS, county auctions, online auctions. I probably won't go that far into this. It speaks for itself. You got to run the numbers. We talked about that already. I'll do that in a minute here. Financing. Yes. Financing. We talked a little about FHA. Home Possible is another program that I think it's directly from Fannie Mae. It's just another low down payment program for first time home buyers that, if I remember correctly, has options for a rehab loan and also for buying multifamily. I didn't even talk about rehab loans. So you can also do conventional with an owner occupied multifamily. Really quick thing on rehab loans. This is another, you got to talk to a lender about it, but with both FHA and Home Possible, I think I'm remembering this correctly with Home Possible, you can basically buy a house that might need some work and say that, I'm going to keep using the same numbers. Say you're buying a house that you're going to live in that you're going to buy for $100,000 and it needs $20,000 worth of work. You can finance that $20,000 in with a loan and still have your 3.5% down payment with FHA. And then after the fact, so there's a whole process involved in doing the estimates, but after you buy the house, part of the loan is the kind of fixing the house up. And that's like a normal loan product. You can also do something like a hard money loan, which is going to be much higher interest rates and it's basically private money. It's not going through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. It's not like any kind of government loan. And bye, Craig. It's another way that you can flip without necessarily having to show a certain amount of income. There are actually ways of doing this with like little to no cash. I don't have experience with this, so I couldn't really talk too much about it, to be honest. But like, the point is, like, there are lots of ways out there to finance. I forgot to write owner financing. I could, like, pretty much all of these slides could be a whole presentation in itself. There also are commercial and portfolio loans. I think I kind of mentioned that. That's basically where the bank itself is going to make a decision based on looking at the numbers and their relationship with you. And then, okay. Real estate agents. Do I need an agent? Well, we're professional negotiators, hopefully. They're usually going to know stuff about off-market deals. Not always, but they might. They're going to manage the transaction for you, market knowledge and advice, and being able to be like, oh yeah, you're crazy for thinking that that's a deal. here's this hidden thing that you don't know about. And you don't have to necessarily be looking at the market every day. If you hire an agent, they might be doing that for you. Like they're going to be keeping an eye out for you. Yes, you might end up having to pay someone commission if it's something off market and there isn't a commission being offered. And you have to trust someone else. So if you're a control freak, it can be hard. I'm a control freak. I get it. I ask a million questions every time I hire someone. My CPA, I ask a million questions. I've been letting go of that over the past 2 years. It's been an exercise in personal growth. Okay. So I want to both, well, the point of this is there's tons of other resources online. Like there are tons of other places where you can find all of this information and get more information. Going back to the questions, will you make more money by spending time on your business? This is something important to think about. If there's always this decision, I feel like, as a business owner, again, in thinking about how much your time is worth. The questions are, is my time worth more doing my job than it is doing this other thing where I could be investing in money? And that's not the only thing. Like, will I have fun doing it? Like, if you're going to have a blast designing a house, like ripping it apart and like designing it, and you're going to be like so happy that this, like, whoever it is moving in, and all, like, you're going to get all this joy out of it, then, like, you know, who cares if you could make more money spending time on your business? That's up to you. But just want to bring that back in, that, like, you know, sometimes we're like, oh, shiny thing, quick money or whatever. And really, you just need to be investing in your business more. And also going back to the question of how can having more cash in hand or more cash flow monthly help your business? So it could still be something that is going to help your business long term. Okay, I want to answer some questions that I got in the chat. Let's see. Curious as to how I can buy another home and keep your current home. I think I addressed some of that, and it definitely is also a go back to your lender who did your home loan, go back to those documents, and like those should answer some of those questions about basically whether you moving out of your current home, like if you're thinking about buying a new home to move into and keep your current home to rent, you got to check your loan documents, because it depends on the type of loan, whether that's an issue, like whether it requires it being owner occupied. There could be options for that. And in terms of options for like buying a second home or buying a multifamily home that you're not going to live in, I went over the second home thing. The multifamily, like a lot of times, if you're not going to live there, you are going to need 20 to 25% down payment. I know about a loan program that is a kind of conventional loan where you can do a 15% down payment, but you have to have been a landlord for a year. How do you suggest building a relationship with a bank? What are they looking for? What should you be looking for in a good bank? First off, definitely I would say people who are local. They are going to understand the market. They're going to understand who you should be talking to. Honestly, a lot of times I would just say, like, wherever you're banking now, whether it's a business bank, whether it's a personal bank, like they know what's in your bank account. They have that history. And if it's good, then they'll at least have some sense of who you are and that you're financially stable. And I mean, it really just depends. And I got to say, there's another thing where I can't say that I'm an expert personally. I don't have that relationship with a bank right now. It's all stuff I'm kind of working on. But if they know that you know what you're doing in real estate, or they are confident in the deal that you're bringing to them, they might make it happen. So call your bank, like wherever your money is, and ask them if you can like talk to one of their lenders. Maybe it's a commercial lender. Be like, hey, I'm looking into investing in real estate. It might be a portfolio loan, it might be a commercial loan, or it might be a traditional mortgage. Who should I talk to? Start there. Um, Exit strategies. Yes. Thank you, Amber. I can send, so the loan that I was talking about, and sorry, I guess I won't have time. I mean, I can certainly stay a little bit longer to do a kind of breakdown of like actually analyzing some deals. Although here, I can pull it up like super quick that I've already done and show it to you. Um, the loan is through Homebridge. Let's see. Justin Homebridge. Oh, I meant Homebridge. So that's the 15% loan that I was talking about. I don't know a lot about it. What I remember again is that it's 15% down and you have to have been a landlord for at least a year. And so someone asked about guilt in foreclosure buying. So here are my thoughts on foreclosures. I am so mad at banks for letting houses just sit empty to rot. It makes me so angry. Not all foreclosures are like junk, like some of them are fine, but then they sit around on the market and then they just get damaged. Like I went into a house that looked great. I was doing a virtual tour for some clients. And then I get there and like, the heat's not on. There literally isn't a furnace. And the windows are all starting to rot because there's condensation because it's so cold outside. So there's all these things that happen. And I'm so frustrated with banks. Really, I think the guilt with foreclosures, there isn't guilt. The blame, if anyone should feel guilty, it's the banks. And like the whole system that's created that is even a thing. I think everyone should have a place to live. I think that, again, like I said this at the beginning, I think there are a lot of aspects of the real estate market that are really problematic. The whole idea that like you have to pay $300,000 to have a place to live in Burlington is ridiculous. I think the whole thing is ridiculous, and I'm in it anyways. But I mean, you're not the one in terms of like the guilt, like you're not the one who took the house away from the person. And the bank is the one taking it away. There's nothing you can do to give that person their house back. Like the way that I see real estate investing as a potential app, like my views on ethical real estate investing are mostly that one, you can create more in terms of doing flips, you can create more like places that are okay to live in. So if you buy a foreclosure and it's something that is a total mess that no one would be able to live in, and you bring it up to, you don't necessarily flip it so much that it's like this gorgeous, beautiful, unaffordable house, and you just bring it to like normal living standards so that someone who couldn't have done all of that repair actually has a place to live. I think that you're doing a good thing. If you are a landlord who isn't a scumbag, you're doing a good thing. Seriously, like if there are more people who actually care about people who are landlords, then renters have more options. I actually just recently saw a thread on a Facebook group with like so many horror stories about landlords in Burlington. It was kind of upsetting. And if there are more people who aren't those like, slumlords, then I see that as a good thing. Housing market. Right. That is a good question. Karin, are we like do we need to stop? Because I can go a little bit longer and answer some more questions.
I would say we can do a soft close, and if people want to stay on, we recognize that maybe you
Cool.
allocated until the top of the hour to be here, and you might have other places that you need to be. But I really appreciate the information that you're sharing and the way that you're doing it with such candor. I'm happy to stay on and keep the conversation going with those who are interested. So first, I want to say thank you so much, Martha, for sharing this information and making it so relatable and approachable. Having the opportunity to read the risks and rewards and hear the different case studies and examples and ways that we might think about financing or leveraging resources that are already available to us, I think has been so helpful. So thank you. And I'm excited to dig into your examples. So I want to invite people who are interested in sharing this kind of information to our Pivot and Thrive community. Martha is a member. We have some other members on the call. It's just a great way to share with each other access to resources, insights, information, and collaborate to support small business growth. So we have events every week, and the membership is just $29 for the year to access those events all in one space. And when you refer members to join, you get points towards winning a Vermont staycation. So talk about using resources and rental spaces to leverage opportunity. There's an example for you. So this has been so lovely to connect with you, and I'll pass the microphone back to Martha so she can continue sharing her anecdotes and tidbits with us. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I had a very busy morning, but I don't have anything right after this, so I can stay for a few minutes and answer a few more questions here. And I will generally always be fairly direct and candid. That's just who I am, and that's what I feel like a lot of my clients appreciate about me. Is I'm not hopefully don't sound like scripted and salesy. So the housing market right now, that just depends. I'm hearing that a lot. I'm asking myself the same thing. And ultimately, like, we never know what's going to happen in the future. And so the same way that, you might have some idea for your business and you're like asking yourself for the past 5 years whether you should do it or not, just do it. I think it does depend on your strategy, and you want to come at it I think thoughtfully and with some balance of like patience for the right thing to come along, and also just knowing that like there's not going to be the perfect thing. So figuring out your goals. I mean, if you want to buy a multifamily, like those, I don't see there is actually some risk in that right now, right? It's something to be, there's risk and opportunity. It's something to be conscious of if you do buy multifamily, in knowing what's going on with the client, not the clients, what's going on with the tenants. Are their jobs steady, right? These were questions that I asked when I was buying my place, and have advised their clients to like make sure we include that in offers to make sure that, the tenants have been paying their rent, like that like I've wanted to know, like, what are their jobs? Are they steady jobs? Because while I don't want to be, like lack compassion, I also can't just like not get paid rent, right? This is like that whole, we can go back into all of the, moral quandaries of it, of, everyone like talking about eviction moratoriums and forgetting that not all landlords are these slumlords or people who own like hundreds of properties. Some landlords own one property, and if their tenants aren't paying them rent, they can't pay their mortgage, and then they're going to get foreclosed on, right? So there's this whole cycle. anyways, little tangent. But I don't think that now is a bad time to invest in real estate. Just make sure that you're going about the right strategy and that you aren't going off of an assumption that the real estate market will appreciate forever. So if you're hoping for equity gains, like, you know, if you want to buy something now and sell it in 2 years and you're counting on equity gains, it's probably not something I would do right now, because who knows? Vermont has proven to be a fairly stable market. Like looking back to 2008, 2009, values did go down, but not as dramatically as in some other markets. And there's some unpredictability with COVID. You know, there were a lot of people, and still are a lot of people, coming from out of state and buying up houses. That's true. Like, that is one reason the market's more competitive right now. And that's one reason that prices have been going up, is because people are coming from Boston and New York, where they have higher salaries, they might have cash, and they can afford to pay more. So there will be some competition. And then there also are, looping back to the careful about knowing about the tenants, there are opportunities in that, because there are landlords right now that are struggling. And if you are able to take on some risk in that sense, in terms of some of the risk of, you know, tenants who need to be evicted eventually, or just like the uncertainty of that, then there might be some properties that are available to you that other people wouldn't be able to take on. Ultimately, if you're looking at, are there properties on the market right now that I could buy and cash flow with? And if the answer is yes, then there's no reason to wait. Like, just get in it. Obviously, we all wish that we could have, you know, I don't know, put money in GameStop 2 weeks ago or whatever, and bought a bunch of single family homes 2 years ago. But we don't know the future, and we can't go back in time. So I would say, if you have regrets about not doing it 2 years ago, don't have regrets 2 years from now, because you still haven't done it. And that's obviously, like, if you have the means. Not everyone can do this. I think I said this at the beginning, but I understand that not everyone can do this. It's not always accessible. I mostly am trying to, like, bring forth the, like, opening that mindset to be like, okay, I don't think I can invest in real estate, but maybe there are ways that I could. Tiny homes. That's like kind of tricky one. I haven't seen them on the market. I believe tiny homes fall in the same category as mobile homes, which is that they actually are considered personal property and not real property. So that just means that personal property generally depreciates over time. Your car depreciates over time. Your laptop depreciates over time. You know, antiques might appreciate, and that's just an exception. Real property is generally appreciating over time. So mobile homes are considered, like, you know, single wides, double wides are considered real property. Personal property, which means they're generally depreciating over time. I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine that tiny homes also fall in that same category. And I'm going into kind of a rabbit hole, but they aren't, like, necessarily selling in the same way that like selling on property, you know, like, buy this house that's a tiny home on land. That's not really necessarily happening a lot that I'm seeing. But in terms of, like, adding it to your property as kind of an investment thing, I think it's a great idea. I don't think I'm seeing it happen a lot. I don't know a lot about the regulations for that, to be honest. It's something I've been, like, intending on digging into, and I just keep not digging into it, because I think that it is a great potential idea for adding value to whatever land you already own. Like if you already own a home and you have some land, that's a great way to add something to it, whether it's a Airbnb kind of thing or renting. I've seen people rent out land for someone to put a tiny home on. But there's still all this stuff with like regulations they need to check in with, in terms of both state regulations with like wastewater and stuff like that. And then also with whether that's allowed through your town. Like it's one of those things that's still kind of evolving in terms of the regulations around it. Statewide strategies in the real estate networks, create more housing. Yeah, so I actually have a friend who works for a company called WheelPad, and I would say just like Google that, because that would give you more information than I can. But they basically add on like they like add on a room on the first floor of the house, like an addition for folks who do become do like end up in a wheelchair or something. And so they as a company are working on addressing some of that need to have more accessible housing. And as a spin-off, the same friend, we were actually talking a lot, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I was doing some kind of market research for him on accessory dwellings and brainstorming on it. He was going to start his own company, but I believe he's actually starting this within WheelPad, a program to add accessory dwellings to more properties. So as kind of a way to add some income and add more like living spaces. So I know that there are companies working on it. And I'm not really that involved though on like the kind of broader statewide level in terms of like Vermont housing initiatives and stuff like that. The accessory unit, it really just depends on where. It's definitely, I shouldn't say definitely. From my knowledge and what I've looked into and know about, it's going to be a better bet to use space that you have in your house and transition it to an accessory dwelling as opposed to like building an addition. In the numbers I ran, whenever it was over a year ago for my friend who was looking into this, an accessory dwelling added like $30,000 to $50,000 to the sale value. But usually like in all of the models I remember him running was going to cost at least $100,000 to build. So it's just another one of those things where you have to just like look closer at your goals and your options, and know how much it's going to cost to do it. Make sure that you check with the regulations and know what your long-term goal is with it. Because again, you can't, under most town regulations, you're not supposed to then move out of that property and rent the house and the accessory dwelling if you're not living there. And usually the accessory unit has to be more than 30% of the total square footage. I think that's what most towns use. Every town has their own rules about accessory dwellings. I've looked through a number of their zoning laws for situations like this, and I believe it's usually at least 30%. I know Renee has experience with this and she's nodding her head too. Renee, are you up for saying anything about that? You don't have to.
I'm currently undergoing a process of adding accessory unit to my property in Burlington right now. So yeah, sure, a little bit. It totally depends on your area. From the comps that I've run, adding an accessory unit to my single family in the new North End, it's going to increase my property value by about $90,000 compared to other houses around here that have sold. That's also partially because we bought our house as a foreclosure at a really good rate right when COVID hit. So because we bought right, I have the equity to be doing this, but certainly if it was like hard cash, it would probably not be something that we were considering. Yeah, so talk to a real estate professional because they can tell you if it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's actually the talk to a real estate professional thing. Like that's always, I think, a good idea to do if you're doing any renovations, because I can tell you I have a number of times when I have a seller client who is really excited about this, new kitchen or like other thing that they did with their house that they spent $30,000 on. And they think that that means their house is worth $30,000 more. And that's not how it works. Because if you're going to sell it, it doesn't matter that you spent 30,000 on it. It like generally looks just a little bit better to most people. So just always something to keep in mind, like what adds value to you while you're living there isn't always going to be something that adds value to the home in terms of the market value, which is another thing where it's like, that's fine. If you're getting value out of it, great. Like everything isn't about money and adding value. It's just about remembering to divide those things of, this is something I'm doing as an investment in my home to add value. And this is something I'm doing because I want it and I want to enjoy it. And like that has value intrinsically for me. Zoning regulations. Yes. Oh, that's interesting, Amber. Yeah, there are definitely times when like an accessory dwelling isn't technically allowed, but you can get a loophole around that somehow. In terms of a garage, generally an appraiser is going to give a garage bay $10,000 of value. That said, there's always a difference between what an appraiser says. This is at least coming from me. There's a difference between what an appraiser puts the value on and like the value of, say that 50% of buyers looking at, you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and 50% of buyers looking at that say they have to have a garage. If you don't have a garage, you just lost 50% of the buyers. So like everything that an appraiser is looking at is adding market value. And this is what real estate agents also are going to be looking at when they're pricing a house to sell. Because usually you want to make sure that it's going to appraise. There's like that value that is put on paper, and then there's the value of what do buyers actually want. And there's going to be, some difference in that. And so it's sometimes hard to put a value. But yeah, I mean, in terms of adding a garage and having a rental unit, like, again, it depends on the cost. But if you're like, I want a garage, I'm going to build a garage and it's going to cost me $50,000, or it can cost me, $80,000 and I'll have an apartment, I probably would go with doing the apartment. There are a lot of things to look at, obviously, but sorry, it's like never a clear answer with real estate investing, because it depends on your long-term goals and like depends on a lot of things, And also you might think that you're going to live there forever, and 2 years from now, something happens and you don't. And that's why most people move into a house thinking it's going to be their forever home. And most of the time it's not, which is fine. Does anyone have more questions? I know I didn't actually run any numbers. Was anyone like really looking forward to seeing an analysis of a deal?
I'd like to see an analysis of the deal.
I was going to say, I don't want to force your hand, but I'd be happy to watch.
If you're up for it.
Okay, cool. Let me just make sure that I didn't forget about, no, I'm good. Let's see. I think let me stop sharing my screen for a second.
Karen, while she's looking, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Please.
Can you explain what you have going on with your Airbnb? And do you have your house, you have your Airbnb within your house, and do you have another property?
Yeah, great question. So I didn't realize until I was looking through the slides how many of these different examples were personally relatable to me. Before we lived here, we had a duplex in Heinsberg, which is just 20 minutes away. And we knew it was our starter home. We tried out being landlords. That was fine. It was great. We realized we could share space. We didn't need to be close to each other because we had separate units. But then we found our dream house here in Starksboro. And so we have a bed and breakfast that has 3 guest rooms. Some of them are right behind me here. And then it has its own kind of apartment above the kitchen and living room that has our bedrooms and family room and, kid space and messy office and, all of the things that you don't want to always have on show. So we have this beautiful space, our dream house. January of last year, couldn't have anticipated this, but our neighbors sold their house to us. And we were like, great, this will be our rental property. It'll expand what we have to offer. It's a 3-bedroom home, and it's immediately next door. And it's been the total lifesaver of COVID and travel because nobody wants to stay, close to, under the same roof with house guests anymore. So, or with each other. So it's been just really a gift to have this additional space, rollover space next door, where we have week-long rentals, much like an Airbnb, but we do it independently, so we don't take on the Airbnb fees. If you're ever looking for Airbnb, look for the location-specific websites or search an area outside of Airbnb, and you'll avoid all of their fees. And also support businesses better, just so you know. And so, yeah, right now we have long-term tenants who are up at our guest house who they're building a house around the corner and they needed a place to land for a few months. And so that has been a really thankful gift for the winter months when, with COVID and travel, it wasn't clear that we would have the retail market for week-to-week rentals. But last summer we were full all but 1 week in the summer. So it has been really great. And there's definitely interest and we've enjoyed, sharing a beautiful Vermont experience. We love living in Vermont. We love sharing the best of Vermont in a weekend or a week or however long someone's looking to stay. So it's been a really fun way for us to connect with people and also to showcase what's around us, the different businesses and experiences that people can cultivate, curate while they're here. So that's been a really fun way to have a business, live in a beautiful place, and share it with other people and feel joy in that too. Oh, and we also are available for weddings and elopements. We had beautiful elopements last season. And so this summer we're looking to do some micro, it's hard enough to plan a wedding in real normal times, but now with COVID, it makes it even more challenging. And we want to just make it really easy for people to come together, make it legal, celebrate it in a beautiful way. And we look out at 3 of the 4 tallest mountains in Vermont, right along the spine of the Green Mountains. And so it's the end of a private road and just really, really beautiful.
I love that. Thank you. Could you mention one more time? You said if you're looking and you're trying to find outside of Airbnb, where do you look?
Yeah. So I would just suggest you can look at Airbnb and you can see the map. And then you might just Google search the town and say inn or rental or bed and breakfast in Wolcott, Greensboro, Brattleboro, wherever that might be. And you'll be able to support a business by giving them the direct payment without having them, you incur with Airbnb, the guests incur a bigger fee, but the business owner also has a fee. So if you're able to support them directly, it helps both of you. So that's something certainly to keep in mind. Does that help? Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna, I wish that I could share my screen as like my entire monitor display, but I can't. So I'll go back and forth for a minute here to show you. So this is, oh wait, that's not the one I meant to share. Here we go. So I feel like it's, oh, haha, it is the one I meant to share. Are you seeing something that says property information?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So this is I actually was looking at this last night. I was just like, okay, what's out there in Chittenden County right now with, that actually has numbers uploaded. And so this one has like uploaded the, like the rent that they're getting per unit, and stuff like that. So in here, and this is a tool that I have access to through a paid membership, but like there are plenty of different tools. Again, there are a million different directions we could go in this, and I'm just gonna kind of be somewhat quick and basic with it. So I'm gonna plug in the address. So let's say full price. Closing costs, this is just, I guess, a general thing anyways, are usually going to be between 3 and 4% of the purchase price is like a rough guess. So let's call this 10,000, and that's not counting the, so you might have any of these things. Prepaid property taxes, inspection costs, appraisal fees, title and escrow fees. And I'm not going to plug all that in. I'm just going to do this. You might even say that you're going to rehab. So I might say that, you know, I'm going to put 10,000 into it. Actually, no, I'm going to skip that. That makes it more complicated. Let's make it simple. But you know, there are plenty of other ways you can run the numbers. Let's say I'm going to do 80% down. My interest rate is going to be 3%. I'm going to pay a point. No, actually, again, keep it simple. 25 years is sometimes it's going to be a little shorter for buying a multifamily unless you're like moving in. So I can go back and do this again, looking at it as, you know, what if I was buying it and I was going to own or occupy it? So the rental income is 1,200 plus 1,650. I know I could probably do this in my head, but it is 2,850. And the property taxes are surprisingly low. 42.40. Insurance, I always just say 1,000 because I don't know, that's usually about what something is. It's usually like an okay guess. These are other things everyone's going to do differently. You might have very specific numbers. You might know exactly what the property, you know, what the owner has spent on average. So I actually do have numbers, and well, I'll stop my share and show it for a second. It's only, I have it in a different tab, so it's, I'll go back and forth a little, but you know, these are the numbers that they shared. So I guess it was at 307 at some point. And let's see. So, you know, they say they spent 300 on maintenance. They're paying for trash. Their insurance is 1,200. So that's actually what I can pull. They're paying for some of the utilities. This is their taxes. That might be what it was last year. So they've given us some of these numbers. And they've kind of made up their own expense ratio and cap rate, which are kind of other numbers that we'll come up with on our own. So just so you know, like what I'm getting the numbers from, I'm going to go back to the other page. Which is here. So sometimes you're going to have these numbers. Usually I'm just going to make them up. I usually put 5 in all of them when I'm running my first calculation. Well, management fees. So this is going to depend on whether a property manager is being used. let's just say we're going to use a property manager so that we don't have to worry about it. And this is just you budgeting, right? Like, you should always be set, if you're renting a property, you should always be setting aside part of the rent for a new roof in 20 years, for your boiler breaking, for a leak and calling the plumber, like whatever it's going to be. Vacancy rates, there's data for this anywhere locally. That's just like, how often are you going to have no one in the property? And I usually would rather play it safe if I'm running the numbers. Everyone's going to do this differently. Again, do not look at me as like the only person who knows how to do this. I am imperfect. I do this my own way. We know that they pay for electricity. Let's see, utilities, 2,400. Let's just say that that's 200 a month and leave that there. Their water sewer is nothing. It must be on a well and septic, as opposed to being on town water and sewer. These are like all the things you consider when you're buying a house, and especially when you're buying an investment property. Like, am I going to have to pump the septic? Am I just paying the town for that? Is there anything else in here? Oh, I was going to fix the insurance cost, because they did say that it's 1,200 for them. It's always, it could always be different for you. And then trash is, let's see,
300.
Well, it's 690, but that's going to break 300 a month. Oh my God. That would be a lot of trash.
I was just trying to remember your spreadsheet.
Oh, it's 690. So I'll say like 60 here. And other, I honestly always put like 100 to 200 in here, because you never know. Again, I'm just being like kind of conservative. So we're going to keep it simple and just do that. And this is going to give me a bunch of numbers. And even being kind of conservative, this is actually showing you cash flow every month. It, is going to show you in 5 years what your return is, in a bunch of different ways. I could move these around, and then breaking down the expenses, right? Like, what am I paying for? Oh, management fees, $285 a month. So is it worth it to me to manage this on my own, to have that much more money? I don't know. That's up to you. So here are like a bajillion other, numbers that you could plug in. Cap rate is something people talk about a lot. If you're like, usually you probably shouldn't actually be using property management fees if you're looking at the cap rate. So that's maybe not super reliable. But if I was looking at this for myself, I would be looking at it and thinking, okay, I can put money down and I'm going to cash flow, but also what could that money be doing for me otherwise? And do I think that the house is going to appreciate? There are all kinds of different rules you can look at. So what I usually do is mess with the numbers a little. So what if I don't want to pay full price, and I ask them to cover my closing costs, and I raise the rents a little bit, and those things aren't going to change. Let's say I don't want to manage it, and I'm going to just like assume that everything's going to be fine and not calculate in any other expenses. Why isn't it letting me update it? What's missing? Is something missing? Oh.
You have to put a zero.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, wow, cool. That looks a lot better. All of a sudden I'm making a lot more off my money, because I'm getting it for less money, and I'm not spending as much every month, and I'm charging more in rent. And this is how much I need if I'm doing a 20% down payment. So that's important to note. And my return on investment is better. The cap rate looks better, which is, again, I mean, see, you can, all this information is like all over the internet. But these are some of the kind of basics. I feel like cap rate is the thing people talk about most. And then people make up all kinds of rules. And then they're like, I'm not going to buy this if it doesn't fit this rule. But I mean, everyone can make up their own rules and everyone has their own goals, right? So one property might work well for someone and totally not work well for the other. Bye. And yeah, that's my quick deal analysis. This tool, I'm totally not here to sell you on bigger pockets, but it's a great site. And that's how I know, well, that's indirectly how I know two of the people on this call. And there are a bunch of other ways that you can kind of calculate numbers here. You can do an Airbnb. I don't think I've actually used this calculator. Oh yeah, there's a calculator. It just tells you like, here's how to figure out. Oh, and pro tip, AirDNA is a great site for if you're figuring out, if you're like analyzing a property for Airbnb, figuring out how much people make for their Airbnb in that area. There are so many resources out there. And I might have to stop talking soon.
No, this is great. Thank you so much for taking us for a little tour. Does anyone have specific questions while we have Martha? You've been very generous with your time, and I want to be respectful of that, but it's just been so fun to talk with you and really helpful to go through the numbers and see how you can crunch them in different ways to maximize your purchase.
Good.
Great. Well, it sounds like we have kindred spirits in the room, people who are appreciating the work that you do, who know what it is to evaluate properties and make sound judgments that align with goals. So thank you for helping us to see possibilities. And
sure.
If you have questions, feel free to be in touch with Martha. She has shared her email, and you can also connect with her on Instagram. And what other ways should people reach out to you?
Anywhere. If you Google my name, I'm the only one. So I'm very easy to find.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's really just been a pleasure to connect with you all today. And I appreciate the opportunity to share your knowledge, Martha. It is the case that you are the host, so you'll get to lead us off the call.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. And thank you, Karin, for hosting and inviting me.
Thank you. You're fabulous.
And engaging.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.